Hi, this is Mitch Mitchell of TT Mitchell Consulting. Tonight, on my sixth video in a row, I want to talk a little bit about racism. You know, when President Obama was elected in 2009, there were a whole lot of people who actually proclaimed, hey, racism is over. There's a black man in the White House. And I thought, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You know, stuff doesn't happen that way. And truthfully, I don't think racism will ever go away. And I'm going to say why in a little bit, but I want to talk about three things that kind of happened this week. The first one involves this video that a guy recorded at some store where this woman got upset with him for whatever reason. And she was on the phone and she just started cussing him out and using all kind of racist language. And she was proud of it in front of her kids. She just kept doing it over and over and over again. And so he was recording it, and she threatened him by saying that someone was going to be coming to beat him up, and said that she had a lawyer and she was going to stick the lawyer on him, and as a matter of fact, she was going to throw things at him and all this other kind of stuff, whatever. And then he put it up on YouTube, and it went nuts. It had so many views within a very short period of time. And initially, when they found her, because you know it was easy to find out who she was, she said, well, yeah, I stand by everything I said. A couple of days later, she changed her tune and said, well, maybe I shouldn't have gone that bad or whatever. And she probably changed her tune because that lawyer that she was talking about probably said, he's got you on tape with threatening him and all these other kind of things. And she probably was one of those big mouth people who thought that she could get away with anything. And one of the statements she made in the video was she knew a lot of cops because she used to give a lot of lap dances to cops when she was a stripper. Who knows? Now, the second thing that happened involved a cotton gin. I didn't even know they still existed. It shows you what I know. In the state of Tennessee, where I happen to be right now. And as a matter of fact, it turns out to be relatively close to where I am, which I didn't know that either. Where after many years, this guy decided that he was tired of it. So he recorded this conversation with the supervisor, who'd been there for a good long time, one of the good old boys, who basically said that the drinking fountain that they had was for whites only, and that the microwave that they had was for whites only. And I guess he's been saying this stuff to everyone for years. And he talked this thing where he said, even Larry doesn't get to use it. Larry's been here 20 years, which shows you that this is something that's been going on a good long time. And the guy asked this supervisor, what happens if I drink water from the water fountain? He says, well, then that's when we hang you. And so, of course, he recorded this on his phone. They didn't know what was going on. He filed an EEOC lawsuit, but the recording out there, it went nuts on the news, and they immediately suspended this guy, and then they fired him. But the company's not talking, and the company that supposedly hired this guy, because they said that it was a different management company that ran these things and hired these people, won't talk. So none of these people are talking, probably because they know the EEOC is pretty much going to find it in this guy's favor unless they get some kind of big settlement. And by the way, it was this guy and another guy who were there. And I guess this has been going on for years. I mean, at least a decade, possibly longer. Then we have this story. And this one has a slightly better outcome, although it still is a bad story. This woman was awarded $105,000 this week because she bought something at a store. And she paid for something ahead of time, and then she picked it up walking out. We've all seen this. There's things, you know, on the display there, and, you know, someone could just, like, grab it and walk out. But, you know, conscientious people, like this lady and like hopefully like the rest of us, she paid for it up there. They have it on the receipt. Well, she took the shirt and tried to walk out, and these guys grabbed her. And they basically restrained her and took her back into a room. She said, I paid for it. Look at my receipt. They wouldn't look at a receipt. They kept her there for a couple hours, and then they just basically started screaming at her and doing all this other kind of stuff. And eventually someone did check on it and found out that it was true. And then they said, well, you had that look of a criminal. I'm sorry, this lady was probably in her 60s, little skinny lady. She had the look of a criminal. Now, here's the thing. They started following her on camera as soon as she walked in. You see it. There's all these people supposedly in the store because it was a grand opening, but the camera is focused only on her. Well, if the camera was focused on her, then they saw her at the checkout, by the way, the camera is on her at the checkout. So they were racial profiling. There it is. Now, she sued. She put it out there. All this stuff is out there. And she won the settlement, but she won the settlement based on the harassment. She lost the part about her race. They said, nah, we don't think they were following her because of her race. Are you kidding me? They weren't following anyone else during that time she was in the store except her. How could they miss that? Oh, that's right. They let the guys off who beat Rodney King. They let off George Zimmerman. Oh, yeah, that's right. So, you know, you have these kinds of stories. This other lady, like I said, she's won some money, but she didn't, you know, they just totally ignored race. How do you ignore race in this situation? Now, this gets back to this point. Why do I believe racism will never end? Well, we got these three things. This is 2014. Every single one of those happened here in 2014. We have all this other kind of stuff that goes on all the time. You know what? I've been followed in stores, and I've also been ignored in stores. You know, it's a strange conundrum. You know, I did something in a store, I'm not going to name the store right now, where basically I stood in a place for 15 minutes one day in the exact same spot. And salespeople just kept like walking around me. No one wanted to help me, and I just stood there. I stood there until one moment I said something to a guy, and he said, "Oh, I'm not supposed to leave my zone." I said, "Okay." And then I started being me, which is I said, "Oh, it would be so nice if someone showed up so that I could buy something. Oh, you know, I've got all this money I really would like to spend in here, but no one obviously cares about my money." And then someone finally showed up. And you know what? I didn't buy anything at that time. I ended up having to go back later on to buy something at that store because, unfortunately, it was the only store that had what I wanted. But I got a little better attention the next time I went. You know, I did a video on my other channel, which I'm going to link to somewhere over here, saying why we need to talk about racism. We need to talk about it. There are so many people who really want to avoid talking about it. There's these people who are basically, it's a gut reaction. Anytime something comes up, oh God, now you had to play the race card. Of course they had to play the race card because you don't want to talk about it. You will never overcome race, one, until you start talking about it, and two, you're not going to overcome it anyway. Why? It goes back further than you could think of. It's not just racism, by the way. You know, there's all kind of bigotry and things that happen. You know, goodness, we hear people still saying things about Jewish people. There's still Polish jokes and Irish jokes and whatever. Oh my goodness, we had this thing last week with Justin Bieber when he was 14 or 15 years old, coming out with these, you know, the racial statement and the racial joke. And then I don't know how old he was when he did this painting of something that he thought was a monkey. And then it turned out later on he admitted, well, it wasn't a monkey, it's supposed to be some rapper. But of course it's got the caricature, big lips and whatever. Oh my goodness. We're never going to get beyond. And he's Canadian. You know, for all the people who have ever said to me, oh, we don't have a race problem in Canada. So, my opinion, racism will never go away. It's also my opinion that we have to talk about it because we can work to diminish racism. But we have to talk about it. You never solve anything by ignoring it. How many videos have I done saying that if you're a leader, you've got to address things? Problems don't go away. If you don't brush your teeth and you get a cavity and you ignore it, it's not going away. It's going to get bigger. You get a sore on your arm and you do nothing with it, it's a possibility that it could get bigger or it could get infected. You could lose an arm. Sometimes some stuff goes away if it's minor, but in general, bad things don't go away. Racism is a bad thing. But, like I said, this is my opinion. Let me know what you think. Shouldn't we be talking about this? Shouldn't there be times where we sit down with each other in some kind of thing and talk about this and try to overcome it or at least try to diminish it? Racism is one of the stupidest things in the world because it's based on what someone looks like. Please. I don't know. Anyway, this is Mitch Mitchell of TT Mitchell Consulting Incorporated. 6 days in a row. I'm enjoying myself. So I know we're not getting a lot of views right now, but that's okay. I'm going to keep putting them out there until you folks start watching. So share them with your friends. Let them know. Let them come over and see this stuff. Although I know this one's going to be scary for a lot of people because the other one was. So, hope you all having a great Friday night. I'll talk at you maybe tomorrow, maybe Sunday. Who knows? Take care.